Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome back to another stream. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is Friday, and happy Friday to everybody out there. I hope you are all having a wonderful week so far, and you're looking forward to the weekend. So today we're going to get into a couple things. We're going to look at writing on college ruled paper as per request from Von D or TFSS Quack via the Discord. If you're interested in joining the Discord, there is a link in the description down below, and you can follow that link and go ahead and join the discussions that are taking place on Discord. Several different channels there. One where you can post your writing samples, so if you're practicing live with me in the mornings, you can go ahead and share your writing samples from that session there. And if you are interested in making a proposal for some live stream content, you can go ahead and do that in the live stream proposal channel. And then we also have a channel for handwriting resources. So if you're interested in looking into that, we have some resources. And that's constantly building, so you can come help us build all of that up. So you can be a part of that from the beginning. Today, I was going to try and play a little bit of music. Hello, Sonu. Thank you so much for joining me today. I was thinking about playing a little bit of music as we streamed. And see how that goes. My main concern with playing music was that the videos would get copyrights and people would monetize the videos and run ads on them. And right now there are no ads on my videos, so I'd like to keep it that way as much as possible. So that's just my concern. But I think I found a little mix that is about an hour long, and maybe it'll be suitable for this as background music, and maybe there will be no copyright. It says copyright free, but can't always trust the title. We'll only know after the video has been processed and made live for playback. So we can go ahead and start playing that now. If the music's too loud at any point, just let me know, and I can turn that down as well. So I can hear it in my headphones, and it's the normal volume, but I need to know from you how loud it is. I can kind of see in the metering that it shouldn't be too loud, but any feedback from you guys would be helpful in that regard. I was just finishing up a little bit of practice that I was doing here, and right now what we're going to get into is the college ruled writing. So I haven't written lined paper in a very long time. It's been almost 2 years now since I've had to take notes in a classroom, but I still have a ton of composition books because I used to go to Target and I'd clean them out. When I was teaching inside the prison, I would buy composition books at Target because you could get the wide ruled ones for 50 cents. So I'd go in there and I would buy them all usually. I'd buy maybe like 25 different composition books from Target. I usually had to ask someone to go to the back and get me more. It's kind of funny. There was one time I had to go to 2 Targets. I think it was around the time that back to school season was going on, so people were buying them. And I cleaned out 2 Targets. Those were the days. Okay, we're going to be looking at writing on college ruled paper. I believe, I'm going to look at the request one more time, but I believe the problem is between descenders and ascenders and not having them collide. So we're going to go ahead and show you the image. So this is an image that was shared on the Discord, And then the question is, my troubles are regarding clashing ascenders and descenders. The only way to avoid it 100% is to double space. This is true. So he's asking me about single space writing. And then TFS Quack also said, writing like this makes homework genuinely enjoyable. So if you are a student and you would like to improve your homework experience, all you have to do is write in cursive, beautiful cursive, and you will find that you will enjoy your time to a greater degree if you choose to write in cursive. So I also found it very enjoyable to write in cursive during class sessions and homework time. I'll be honest though, the moment I started writing in cursive in class, I didn't have to study as much. It was the strangest thing. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but I was flunking out of college, right? And then I spent the summer of 2012 learning to write with both hands. And when I went back to college in the fall of that year, I had my capstone classes. I was now working into the more difficult classes of my college time, and it was essential that I started to get straight A's, because if I didn't get straight A's, I wouldn't be able to bring my cumulative GPA back up to a reasonable 3.0. So I was a bit concerned, but I was also really surprised to find when I went back to school that I was able to sit in class, take notes, remain attentive throughout the whole duration. And it was as if a whole new person had been created from the 3 months of cursive handwriting in college, or during the summer. And it really blew me away, because now I wasn't really studying as much. I remembered so much from the lectures that I didn't feel like I had to study. And when I did study, all I did was I copied my notes that I had taken with my right hand in class, and I would copy them with the left hand backwards. And it was amazing. I would remember everything. I was acing tests on subjects that I didn't care for, like social sciences and history and my English compositional writing, or whatever that 306 capstone is. I was acing all these classes that I had very little interest in. So I knocked all my capstones out right away, and then all I had left were art classes. And so I worked it out so that my last, I think 2 years maybe, or it might have been 2.5, maybe even 3 years of school, I had no capstones. All I had to focus on were art classes. So I was taking art classes like glass blowing and ceramics, and see what else. I was taking printmaking. I painted. I learned photography. Ceramics was a big one for me, though. I still do ceramics occasionally. Sonu asks, do you feel more productive as well? Yeah, absolutely. I felt more productive. There was something about structuring my day in that way, where I would wake up and I write, kind of similar to what I'm doing for you guys here now, that just sets the tone for the rest of the day. If you wake up and you're productive, you kind of set the tone. And, I talk about it in my book, but when I wrote that book that I had came out with last year in January, I wrote it in about the time of a month. And the way I did it was I woke up every day around 4:30 or so, and I would kind of like do my routine, do some exercise, do some writing, do a little meditation, and then I would go and start writing for about half an hour to an hour. And in a month's time, I knocked out, this. It's not a super long book. It's like 90 pages, but I knocked that book out, and it wasn't too bad. I was kind of surprised. It took me longer to edit the book because I wanted to find somebody with an outside perspective. But yeah, that was that experience. So yeah, 4:30 a.m. That's right. Yeah, right now I'm waking up about 5:30, so it's an hour later than than that time there, but I was doing that because I was trying to write that book. So, and also at that time, I had to be at work by 8 a.m. So, I needed enough time in the mornings to get what I wanted to get done. Because when I came back from work, I was usually too tired to actually be focused for that kind of task, or to have the energy for that kind of task. I also felt too that in the mornings, my head was much clearer, and I could hear my thoughts better, I could articulate them better. So that was that. Okay, we're gonna get into this college ruled writing because don't want to get on too big of a rant here. Alrighty, so one thing that I do, and I did when I wrote in college, was I thought about the placement of words a little bit, and this is kind of on the fly kind of thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and write a little passage, and then I'll go back and I'll talk about where I made these conscious decisions to accommodate spacing. And then the other thing is, this book, because it's a thicker book, it's a little more difficult to write with your whole arm. So maybe I'll tear the page out, make my life a little easier. Okay. Today is Friday. Is it 1:18? Yes, 1:18. At least my mind's calendar is still on track here. 1:18, 2019. I probably wouldn't write numbers like this if I was actually taking notes in class. Atharva Kulkarni. I think you said hello. So hello, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Right now we're going to work on a little journal entry addressing ascenders and descenders in spacing. Okay, so I tried to make it as casual as an approach as I could. So, like for example, with what's going on here, usually what I'll do is I'll look for any obstructions and avoid having any ascenders directly below or in the proximity of descenders. So like this is a good example because I just pushed this a little further away from the period before that. So that they wouldn't collide. I'm going to try writing another passage here in pen so that I could see, I can see what is going on a little brighter. And you guys too, because I know the pencil might be hard to see. Shazan, hello, thank you for joining me this morning. It is currently 7. I start at 7 a.m., so it's 7:15 right now. Yeah, for me it's 7:15. Okay, let's do another section to this passage in pen. Okay. So, a couple points where I made a conscious effort to avoid descenders and ascenders. Some small things that I could have done here is, for example, notice that G was there. Both of these scenarios happened without me noticing, so I didn't preemptively prepare. But what you can do is, like, for example, in this word smaller, is either push the spacing further out so that when you get to the L's would fall behind the Y. And the same thing could have been done here with want, is I could have pushed want a little further this way so that the T would fall behind the G. So I'll go ahead and give you the example. So now I don't have to worry about the ascender and the descender clashing, although that G is a little low in general. But with college ruled paper, you're going to want to write smaller altogether. India, 8:50 p.m. Yep, there's a big gap here. I think I had looked it up. It's like 14 hours or so. Or no, at that point, let's see, 13 hours, 13 and a half hours, something like that. Yeah, but for this size line paper, you're going to want to write smaller. So it may be that when you're taking notes in class, and when I took notes in class, I would usually use a combination of finger and whole arm movement, which allows me to write a little bit smaller, surprisingly. So So that's just a quick example of how you can use combination movement to write a little bit smaller. And that will give you less trouble with ascenders and descenders colliding. But still, there has to be a little bit of planning involved, so you want to be paying attention to whether or not there's a descender coming on that line that you're writing, and whether or not you're going to place an ascender there. And if that's the case, then it may be that you're going to want to move a word over a little bit and just create a little bit more spacing between a couple of words, so that those two, the descender and the ascender, don't actually collide with one another. So just something to hopefully help you out with that. I don't always write nowadays on single line paper, so my experience is limited, but hopefully you found that helpful. Might as well cover the rest of this paper now that we started. One of my weaknesses is the spacing between letters, and this drill is supposed to help with that. But as you can tell, I don't work on it often enough. It's so very different writing with music in the morning. I'm not entirely used to that. What do you guys think of the music so far? Is it distracting? Are you enjoying it? Is it a nice addition? Could you do without it? I'd like to know your opinion. Lupus is enjoying it. Awesome. Glad to hear. I think the music helps a lot with rhythm in writing. It can, potentially. I think it would also depend on the type of music you're listening to. So, I've heard that classical music from the Baroque era is particularly effective in helping you focus and concentrate because of there's these two parallel melodies that run on different frequencies or something like that, and it affects your brainwave in this way that helps you hyper focus on whatever it is that you're working on. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe one of these days we'll have to try some Baroque music. Baroque classical music. Okay, I have this paper that's not yet covered. I feel like covering it. I'm going to use my left hand now, and I would like to do a little bit of mirror writing. On the back side of this, I have some A's that we were working on yesterday, I believe. And I think I would like to do that drill, but now with the left hand. How are we in frame? Okay, so this is in frame. Need to make sure I stay in frame. This drill is so strange because I feel like I can nail that one, but the second one never comes out quite good. The vellum paper, let's see how quickly it dries. Wet test. I've noticed before myself smearing on it, so it doesn't dry particularly fast. Let's see. Yeah, still not dry. So let's see.
Olives had a major run. Maraschino cherries, major run.
Still not dry.
One had a run like limes. No run.
We can check the elapsed time in the playback, but still hasn't dried. Should be just about there though. Okay, so I don't know, maybe like 10-15 seconds it takes to dry. Yeah, the vellum holds the ink really well. I've used a flex nib on this paper before, and I was actually really surprised with how well it did. So vellum is actually, I think, a pretty good paper for calligraphy. This particular paper wouldn't be good for any clients because it's graphed, obviously, but if you buy some clear vellum. The only thing with it too is that it's really fragile. So like this crease here, there's no getting this crease out of the paper. So it's kind of the toss-up. I don't think I would ever use vellum for anything, any commissions or anything. I would stick to watercolor paper because I like the thickness, the weight of the paper. I also like the way it looks when you tear the edges of that paper. So I have a stack of watercolor paper right now in little squares that were scraps from another project and that were given to me. I'm really excited to use those eventually. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I promote the ambidexterity. See, with the left hand here, it's not incredibly good or impressive in any right. If you look at it backwards or in a mirror, you can see that most of it's actually pretty accurate. But overall, the coordination just isn't comparable to my right hand, where my right hand has a couple of decades of experience writing and building coordination in a multitude of things. My left hand has only been doing these kinds of exercises for 7 years or so. So it's really interesting how, over 7 years, this amount of coordination has been built. This is what I can show for it. But after a session of practicing like this, I can switch over to the right hand and I can, nail the drill more times than I could if I just jumped into the right hand. So it's kind of interesting how the coordination on the left hand feeds the coordination on the right hand, and it's as if you have a teacher and a student in one, and that the relationship is built. So if you've taught anything, okay, here's a better example. So if you've taught anything in your life, you might know that you've learned a little bit more about that subject by teaching it. So the same kind of takes place when you are learning to write with the left hand, because you're teaching yourself through the right hand, especially when you do things mirror image. So you're both the teacher and the student, so you're learning from the teacher. But as a teacher, you're also learning more about that whole process. Sonu says, "Sir, people like me go to YouTube to learn about handwriting, but get misled by seeing penmen writing gradually. Would you help please write fast as possible to clear this misconception? Will help students." Okay, so you want me to write quickly. Yeah. I mean, what I was writing earlier on that college ruled paper, that was pretty much my casual writing. But we could do something like that again. Let's go ahead. We're going to do it again on another college ruled paper. Forgot to put my phone on silent again. So if I was writing a casual letter to a friend and I didn't care how the penmanship looked, this would more or less be how it would go. I mean, I always bring attention to writing. So now that I've kind of delved into it in the way that I have, it's never really as whimsical as it might have once been. So you can see in my older writing samples that there's not as much attention to detail there. I'm writing to write. So, when I write, even when I write quickly, I'm still bringing attention to that. So, there's nothing wrong with writing slow either. Usually if I write with my left hand, I tend to write slower, and I find that really valuable experience because I'm learning a lot from the left hand about that. It has a precision that the right hand seems to lack at times because it's so proficient. So because the left hand is lacking, it moves a little bit more slowly, it's a little bit more precise, and I can learn from it in that way. But I'll go ahead and do a little writing sample here. Here's another descender, ascender collision. So I planned this missing of a descender ascender collision here. Here I planned it. Planned. This one was not planned. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of planning to avoid that. Actually, in India, most of learning is through handwriting. Millions want to learn writing fast. Oh, very interesting. I did not know that. So, yeah, I mean, whole arm movement's a great element to writing fast. If you need to write quickly, you can use whole arm movement. I think, TFS Quack, I think that ideally you will want to write on wide ruled paper. I'm not enjoying my experience too much writing on college ruled because I like to write a little bit bigger, but I do need to also work on downscaling my writing. So, but I know that in college I always use college ruled paper, so it's kind of weird that I'm having trouble with this now. Okay, I guess that's the end of the mix. I also, in one of my other videos, I talk about printing and how I approach printing. This is the exact paper that they use in India. Okay, so college ruled paper. So yeah, one of the previous live streams, I talked a little bit about printing, and my plan is to make an exemplar in printing. But when I print, I don't use whole arm movement, I use finger movement. So, for example, one thing that I don't enjoy about printing is that the faster I try to write when I print, the harder it becomes to keep everything correct. So I'm more likely to make mistakes as I'm printing. And I feel like it has something to do with the lifting of the pen. It it takes away from the flow of the actual writing. So just to give you an example, let's write the word required in cursive. Okay, and now let's print it. It's hard to say which one was faster. Only the playback will know. Playback, time me. Leave comments. Let me know which one was written more quickly. Okay, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and call it there on Friday. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. I hope that you have found this session helpful. Again, if you have any further questions, I knock this thing all the time. I need to find a better way to do this, but I hit it all the time. Anyways, if you have any further questions, you can go over to the Discord and ask them there. We have a live stream proposal section, so if you want me to address anything in the live stream, you can leave a comment there, and I will do my best to address it in the next session. We also have a tab for handwriting resources and a page where you can leave all of your writing samples. So if you've been practicing with me live, I'd love to see some of your samples from this morning's session. Okay, thank you guys again for joining me. We will see you next week at the writing desk. Have a good weekend, everybody.